Or think about how often we're trying to, get what we want.
Yeah.
Like, it's not just about haggling over a price, right? Sometimes it's about really understanding someone, like what's going on in their head. That can make all the difference, especially if things are getting a bit intense.
Yeah, and it's crazy how those same skills you'd use in like a hostage situation where it's literally life or death, well, those same things come up in our daily lives too. Think about it, arguing with your internet company or even trying to get your kid to eat their veggies. It's all kind of connected when you look at how people tick.
You're totally right. So that's exactly what we're diving into today. Chris Voss, this former FBI hostage negotiator, wrote this book, Never Split the Difference, and it's packed with real-world advice. We're going to break it down for you, the learner, find those nuggets of wisdom that you can actually use. And honestly, some of it is pretty surprising, like how to deal with, well, basically anyone, whether it's a tough boss or I don't know, a telemarketer.
And what's so cool about Voss is his background, right? I mean,
Yeah.
years in the FBI dealing with the most intense situations imaginable. One wrong word could, have terrible consequences. And then he ends up teaching negotiation at Harvard Law School. Talk about a change of pace. Working alongside big names like Robert Mnookin and Gabriella Bloom, that right there tells you something interesting is going on.
For sure. And speaking of interesting, imagine this. Chris Voss walks into Harvard, probably thinking he's going to do this short program, see how the academics approach things. He meets with Robert Mnookin, this huge figure in the negotiation world, for what he thinks is just a casual coffee.
And we have to remember, Voss wasn't some high-flying academic. He started as a beat cop, worked his way up. Now he's in this intellectual haven with Mnookin and Gabriella Bloom, who literally negotiated for the Israeli National Security Council. So you've got this clash of street smarts and theory.
Right. And then, bam, they spring this surprise negotiation roleplay on him. Mnookin's the kidnapper, Voss's son is the hostage, $1 million ransom. Voss even says he felt that panic like a punch to the gut, something he says never truly goes away. But here's the thing.
Even though he felt totally out of his element, he used his FBI training. And guess what? He gets the ransom down, saves his son.
It was a light bulb moment, right? It wasn't just about winning some game. It proved that what the FBI had developed under extreme pressure actually worked, even in this, ivory tower setting. He'd basically taken on these negotiation experts and shown them a different way.
It was huge for him. It made him ask, okay, if this works on kidnappers and terrorists, what about everyday people? Can we use this with, I don't know, our spouses, our coworkers?
And the answer he found, a big, fat yes. This is what Voss is all about. Negotiation isn't just for boardrooms and hostage situations. It's how we communicate every single day. The same skills that de-escalate a crisis can help you with a disagreement with your neighbor or get a better deal on your phone bill.
And the FBI had a really high success rate in resolving kidnappings peacefully. They weren't relying on theories. They were using what worked, what saved lives.
And this is where Voss departs from that traditional negotiation stuff, like the getting to yes approach. That's all about being rational, finding that win-win. But the FBI learned that sometimes people just aren't rational. Emotions are running high. Someone might not even want a win-win.
Exactly. Voss even points to Ruby Ridge and Waco as examples of where getting to yes just wouldn't have worked.
Yeah.
How do you find common ground with someone who thinks they're, well, the chosen one?
So that's where tactical empathy comes in. And it's not about being a pushover. It's more like it's about really getting into the other person's headspace. You're listening to understand, not just to respond. You're trying to see the world through their eyes.
He calls it listening as a martial art, which I love. And the science backs it up. When people feel truly heard, they let their guard down. They're less likely to dig in their heels and more open to different solutions. It's about creating a feeling of safety, of being understood.
One technique that's so simple yet so effective is mirroring. Basically, you repeat the last few important words the other person said.
It's like saying, hey, I'm not just listening, I'm trying to get you.
Voss tells this story about a student whose boss was always springing last-minute tasks on her. This one time, the boss wanted paper copies of thousands of digital documents. The student remembered mirroring and said, 2 copies.
What happened? The boss actually stopped, thought for a second, and said, well, actually, just put them in my office. Make 2 digital backups for now. The next day, an email confirmed digital backups were enough.
Just by mirroring, the student got the boss to rethink what he actually needed.
The goal with mirroring is to get them to explain more. It's way better than saying, what do you mean by that? Which can make people defensive.
Another key skill is labeling emotions. You're saying out loud what you think the other person is feeling. You might say, "It seems like you're frustrated," or "It sounds like you're feeling pressured."
This can do two things. It calms down negative emotions and boosts positive ones. By acknowledging a negative feeling, you take away its power.
Voss tells this funny story about his FBI boss, who he was kind of scared of. He messed something up and called his boss saying, "Bless me, Father, for I have sinned." Totally disarmed the situation. They both laughed.
Labeling isn't just for tough situations, though. It can also help you uncover hidden issues. Voss talks about this guy, TJ, who was trying to collect money from Washington Redskins fans who hadn't paid for their tickets. His first approach was super direct, just focused on the money. Didn't work.
Then he changed it up. He started acknowledging that times were tough, that maybe these fans were struggling financially. Just that little shift, showing he understood, made a huge difference. He got everyone on a payment plan before the next game.
And it can reveal things you'd never guess. This student was trying to get donations for Girl Scout projects. This one lady kept doing no to everything, so the student said, "I'm sensing some hesitation."
Yeah.
And boom, the lady opens up.
Turns out she was worried about the money being misused. But then another label, "It seems like there's something else," and the real story comes out. This lady had been a Girl Scout, had all these great memories. She ended up writing a check because she felt understood.
So once you're building that connection, understanding the other person, you could use something called an accusation audit. It sounds crazy, but you basically list out every bad thing the other person could say about you before the negotiation.
It's like you're handing them ammo, right? But actually, it shows you're not hiding anything. You're aware of their concerns. It builds trust.
There's this story about Anna, whose firm had to renegotiate with a big client, ABC. They lowered their fees, but they didn't want to ruin the relationship. So they made this accusation audit, listed every possible negative thing ABC could say.
And in the meeting, Anna just laid it all out there. You're probably thinking we're being unfair, that we're not holding up our end of the bargain. And guess what? The ABC guy was like, "No, actually, we get it. We haven't been meeting our obligations."
By putting those negative thoughts on the table, Anna diffused them. They reached an agreement and actually strengthened the relationship.
It's like taking the sting out of a criticism before it's even made. It's connected to this idea of loss aversion. We hate losing more than we like winning.
And speaking of psychology, let's talk about deadlines. Conventional wisdom says hide them, but Voss says revealing them can actually be better. It puts pressure on you to make concessions, while the other side might think they have all the time in the world.
Deadlines can backfire if they're not managed well, but hiding them can be worse. Think about it. If you don't know when the clock is ticking, you might stall and miss opportunities to compromise. Voss argues that transparency can actually expedite the process.
Now, this is a big one.
Yeah.
Fairness. People will walk away from a deal that's objectively good if they feel it's unfair. Voss talks about this experiment, the ultimatum game. You offer someone a split of, say, $10. They can accept or reject. If they reject, no one gets anything.
You'd think people would always take something, right? But if the offer feels too lopsided, they'd rather get nothing than feel cheated.
Exactly. It's not just about the money, it's the principle. Like with Robin Williams in Aladdin. He agreed to a low fee for his voice work, but then the movie was this massive hit.
And he felt cheated, even though he had initially accepted the deal. It was that feeling of unfairness that got to him. And this stuff happens all the time in negotiations, like when someone says, "We've given you a fair offer," but it's really just a pressure tactic.
So when it comes to price, Voss usually says, let the other side go first. It gives you information. But sometimes you might want to set a range based on similar deals, kind of anchoring the negotiation without making a specific offer.
And don't forget about non-monetary terms. Sometimes getting creative with those can add way more value than just haggling over price. Think about things like payment terms, delivery dates, maybe even throwing in something extra that doesn't cost too much but means a lot to the other side.
And finally, there's this fascinating concept of black swans. These are those hidden pieces of information that no one knows about, but they can totally change the game.
Voss uses the example of the Waco siege. The negotiators didn't know that some of the people inside actually wanted to die. That was a black swan that no one saw coming, and it led to a tragic outcome.
It shows how important it is to really listen, to try and understand the other person's religion, their deepest beliefs and values. When you think, these people are crazy, oh, that might be a sign of a black swan, something you're just not seeing.
Like this one student who was trying to buy this apartment building. It was making tons of money, didn't make sense why the owner would sell. but the student kept asking questions, really listening.
And it turned out the building was a nightmare to manage. The owner was at his wit's end. That black swan changed everything. The student got a great deal because he understood the situation.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the big takeaway for you, the learner?
Negotiation isn't some magical skill. It's about understanding how people think, how emotions work. And you can learn it. It's not just for business deals, it's for life.
Absolutely. Always be curious, question your assumptions, and listen, really listen to what the other person is saying and what they're not saying. You might be surprised by what you discover.
Every conversation is a chance to learn something new, to get a better outcome. If you use honesty, empathy, and this tactical empathy that Voss talks about, you can turn conflict into something positive. The most important information is often hidden just beneath the surface. It takes active listening and a willingness to understand to uncover it.